Good afternoon, everybody. Renee Savell from QAD. So we're going to be discussing digital signatures and seals. If anybody has any questions along the line, please just jump in. There is a lot of information about this, and I know there's probably some clarification that is needed. It can get a little confusing, or there might be some misinformation out there about it as well. So please feel free to jump in as you can. So slide. All right. So what is exactly a digital signature, right? A lot of times you're going to hear sometimes you'll hear an electronic signature versus a digital signature. The difference is a digital signature is created using a third-party certificate, which is provided by a certificate authority, a CA, quote unquote. This certificate, quote unquote, it basically has encrypted information about the AOR or the design professional that's signing the document, saying that this person is who they are. It's basically kind of like an online notary, their license number and so on and so forth. Now, the difference between a digital signature and an electronic signature basically is just that, an like signature via electronically. So if you ever went into Adobe and you signed something and it says digitally signed by so and so, that's basically you self-signing a document. That's basically saying you're saying who you are, right? Now, using a third-party certificate from a certificate authority, these third-party businesses actually verify to say you are who you are, right? And here on the bottom is kind of an example. Sometimes using Adobe, if I were to digitally sign a document, you can make it look whichever way you kind of want to make it look, but this is something that it would kind of look like. Slide. All right. So like I mentioned, the certificate authority is like a de facto online notary. It's a trusted third party. All right. It assures the identity of the party. So typically, if you were going to go through one of these companies here's a couple examples. You got DocuSign, Identitrust, and Trust. What you do is when you go online, they have a kind of different versions. The basic certificate is what you need when you digitally sign a document for the Port Authority. The most basic one. There's some out there for like the DOD, and if you're going to, Australia and all these different things, you don't have to do all that, right? The most basic one is what you need. Now, we don't have a preference in terms of which company you use to get your third-party certificate, DocuSign, Identitrust. We have no preference as long as it's third-party verified. Now, based on experience, I've heard that you can get it back. It can be turned around within a couple of days to maybe a week. It really only depends on how fast you can turn around the paperwork with them, and also the cost. Sometimes with a certificate, you can get it for like 6 months, you can get it for a year, you can get it for 3 years, and depending, how often you do business with the Port Authority, probably really recommended that you probably get the longer one, just because you're just going to keep using it and using it and using it. Slide. Now, unfortunately, one of the things that did come out of COVID was when the Port Authority went all digital, we created our digital signature and seal policy. Now, there are two tacks of thought here with the electronic signature and seal policy, right? We have New York and New Jersey. Go figure, right? Port Authority, New York, New Jersey. Who knew, right? So if you're looking at the legislative between New York and New Jersey, we went with the most restrictive, right? The most comprehensive one. Now, if you look at New York, they have the Electronic Signatures and Records Act. And basically, what that says is basically says that you can use an electronic signature to sign a document. It does have a provision where it says you may use a third party, but it's not required. Now, with New Jersey, right, through the DCA, they require a third-party certificate authority. So we went with a more restrictive. Now, based on their section here at the Administrative Code in Part A, basically states the digital signature and seal shall carry the same weight, authority, and effect as handwritten signature and impression type seal with the following criteria met, and so on and so forth. And that basically goes into the algorithms that the certificate authorities, typically the process they have to do to get that to issue. And that's a very mundane process, so don't worry about that. But basically what we're saying is, I myself was an intern one day, back in the day, maybe like yesterday. I'm very young. I'm kidding. But we used to sign for our principals and things like that, and hand, and all those different things. So basically, when a principal signs, what we're saying is the digital signature carries the same weight. So if you're handwriting a signature, then you're digitally signing a signature, right? So we're going to go through a couple examples. I know maybe there might be some questions about the difference between certifying a document and digitally signing a document, which we'll get into. But basically, that's where our policy comes from. Now, a lot of times, we hear from design professionals that say, DCA never required us to do this and things like that. That's unfortunate. That's a little bit of a fib because we have worked with the DCA and we have confirmed the process of the digital signatures that they accept. Next. Now, when you digitally sign a document, a PDF, the two big programs out there right now are Adobe and Bluebeam, right? In both programs, you have the option for a digital signature as well as certified, right? Now, here on the left is what you would see in Adobe. On the right, you'll see what's in Bluebeam. And you can see on the left, if you look to the right there, you'll see certified. And then, well, you can't really see it on the Bluebeam side on the right, but it would say document certification. But the option you always want to select is digitally sign. Next. Now, this is an example. If you were to digitally sign a document in Adobe, and once we validated everything, so on and so forth, right? This is how it would come up. We always want to see the green check mark, right? Simple. Green means go, red means stop, right? Pretty basic stuff, right? Not mind-blowing. But what it is here is you can see when we validate these signatures, we look for that third-party certificate. And you can see here, this individual, it was issued from Entrust. And you can see within it, it says CA, which means certificate of authority. So that's how we verify, it is a legitimate certificate of authority that issued this. Now, here is one exception that I must throw out there. A lot of the bigger companies, I think Peroni, some of the bigger companies, they actually have become their own certificate authority. Okay. Now that's quite okay. Now, if you do work for that company, we'll say for all intents and purposes, ACOM, right? And ACOM has a certificate authority and they issue you a third-party certificate and you use that to sign the document. Unfortunately, that is not acceptable because it is a conflict of interest, right? It's like the Port Authority designing something, reviewing on our own. It's just one big conflict of interest. So if you do work for a company that has its own certificate of authority, right, and you're signing a document that's to be submitted towards the Port Authority under that company name, you need to obtain a third-party certificate from either Entrust, DocuSign, and so on and so forth. Okay. Slide. This is an example of what it would look like in Bluebeam. As you can see, green means go. This is one of our friends over at Gensler, Matt Johnson. This one you can see it's a little bit of a breakout, a little bit of a different format in the information you see. But you can see this one, Matt actually got it from Global Sign, and you can see within it the CA for a certificate of authority. Next. Now, here are some common mistakes or common errors that that have popped up over the years with these things, and these are the most common. And we'll deep dive into it a little bit. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Now, this one is self-signed. Now, if you remember when I mentioned earlier the difference between a digital signature and an electronic signature, this is what a third electronic signature would be. As you can see in the bottom, it said self-signed, right? It's issued by the PE. It's not issued by Entrust, DocuSign, or anything that can validate that this person says who they are. All right. Now, it is a safeguard again for the design professional. God forbid, you don't want these things kind of floating around because God forbid, say somebody wanted to screenshot my seal and sign a document using me and saying, I am Renee Sabalos. Which, listen, I don't blame you. Look at me, but that's obviously highly illegal, and you don't want that. So using the certificate of authority is a great way. It benefits everybody in terms of legality and also QA/QCing and things like that, and keeping all the information legal and safe. Next. Certified only. So this is another big example, mishap, common error that pops up. Now, as I mentioned before, As I mentioned before, I think I get some feedback here. As I mentioned before, that there's a difference between digital signature and certifying a document, right? Now, if you see on the right there in Bluebeam, this is a screenshot from Bluebeam. You can see that across the Bluebeam, up the blue ribbon up top, it says certified by so and so. Now, basically, what it's saying is certification is just saying they're certifying that it's an original document. Now, are you using the third-party certificate? Yes. As you can see, this person is using it. Looks like global sign there. All right. However, again, based on the administrative code and what we use in terms of our digital signature and seal policy, all right, we need to make sure it has the same weight as a handwritten signature, right? You would never say certified really on a drawing. You would never write certified, right? You don't, it's a signature. So basically, if you go to scan to the left there, you want to make sure that it's signed, right? If it's hand signed, then it's digitally signed. And that's why there's a difference sometimes when it goes back and forth saying, with certified, you can make it appear it says signed by, but basically legal purposes, we need to make sure that it says it's digitally signed by the design professional. Next. Another common error is expired certificates. Now, from time to time, like I said earlier, you can get certificates from like 6 months to a year to 2 years to 3 years. A lot of design teams that do work with us for a very long time, they just, 3, 5 years, 20 years from now, who knows? But sometimes, it's just kind of like a license, right? You kind of forget sometimes. You're like, oh no, I got to renew my license. It gets expired, so on and so forth. So it's important that you keep it up to date. Now, legal wise, it needs to be, your digital certificate needs to be valid at the time of submission. Okay, so if we were to go 5 years down the road and we were, audited by the city or the state or whatever it may be, we need to pull up the document, say it was submitted on, the 1st and it was valid during that time, right? Now, if it was expired, think of it as if you were driving with an expired license. You can still technically do it. However, you get pulled over and get caught, you still get a ticket, right? It still gets the law, right? So you want to make sure that it's always up to date. If we catch it, we try to catch it maybe a month ahead of time, try to give you a heads up. Hey, listen, it's coming up. Just, be mindful of it and things like that. But that's a reason why we may kick back a document if the digital certificate is expired. Next. And the other most common error that pops up are document modified. So what happens is when a design professional digitally signs a document, it locks the document, basically, right? Like I mentioned before, that it's a safeguard, right? So it locks the document so that way nobody can modify the document afterwards, right? Now, if the document were modified for some reason, who knows, I don't know, took out a sheet or they try to draw something on it, it would invalidate the digital signature and it would pop up red here and it would give an error message saying the document was modified or altered, okay? So again, that's a safeguard against anything, after the design professional might digitally sign and seal it and things like that. Sometimes, there might be an error where, maybe you change the file name or something like that, and it might pop up. Unfortunately, we don't have much control over that, unfortunately. But, it's usually a quick fix and things like that. And we can always kind of troubleshoot it, but that's kind of another common error that occurs. I think it's the last one. Okay. Questions?